Tonight's calming story is called The True Wealth of Happiness. Lie back, relax, and enjoy this heartwarming tale. Once upon a time, in a bustling city, there lived two very different families. The first family, the Montagues, were incredibly wealthy. They lived in a grand mansion atop a hill, with golden chandeliers, marble floors, and a garden filled with rare flowers from all over the world. Mr. Montague was a successful businessman, and Mrs. Montague was a renowned socialite. They had two children, Julia and James, who had every toy and gadget imaginable. Despite their riches, the Montagues were often unhappy. Mr. Montague was always busy with work, rarely spending time with his family. Mrs. Montague was constantly worried about maintaining their social status and keeping up appearances. Julia and James, though they had everything money could buy, felt lonely and bored. They wished their parents had more time to play with them, and that they had friends who liked them for who they were, not for their wealth. Down in the valley, in a small, cozy cottage, lived the Smiths. The Smiths didn't have much money, but they had something far more valuable: love and happiness. Mr. Smith worked as a carpenter, and Mrs. Smith was a seamstress. They had two children, Emily and Tom, who spent their days playing in the fields, climbing trees, and creating their own adventures with simple toys made by their father. The Smiths' home was filled with laughter and warmth. Every evening, they would gather around the dinner table, sharing stories about their day and enjoying the simple, delicious meals Mrs. Smith prepared. After dinner, they would play games, sing songs, and cuddle together under a warm quilt, telling bedtime stories until they all drifted off to sleep. One day, by a twist of fate, Julia and James Montague found themselves lost in the valley while exploring the woods. Frightened and tired, they stumbled upon the Smith's cottage. Emily and Tom welcomed them with open arms, offering them food and water. The Montague children were amazed by the warmth and kindness of the Smith family, despite their modest living conditions. That night, for the first time, Julia and James experienced the joy of being part of a loving family. They played games, listened to bedtime stories, and fell asleep feeling safe and content. The next morning, Mr. and Mrs. Smith helped Julia and James find their way back home. When the Montague children returned to their mansion, they were filled with a newfound appreciation for their own family. They told their parents about the Smiths and how happy they were. Despite not having much, Mr. and Mrs. Montague realized that their wealth had made them forget the true meaning of happiness. From that day on, the Montagues made a conscious effort to spend more time together as a family. They hosted dinners, played games, and shared stories, just like the Smiths. Slowly but surely, their mansion, once cold and silent, became filled with laughter and warmth. As for the Smiths, their lives continued to be filled with joy. The friendship between the two families grew, and they often visited each other, sharing in their happiness and learning from one another. And so, in the bustling city, both the rich and the poor families found true happiness, not in wealth, but in the love and time they shared together, and they all lived happily ever after. Thank you for listening to tonight's heartwarming story. We hope you enjoy it. Good night and sweet dreams. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more relaxing bedtime stories.